Hey guys, Steven Werner with Lawn Buddy here, and I am very excited that we get to kick off the Lawn Buddy Masterclass series with your first piece of information on customer acquisition cost, or what you'll hear commonly referred to as your CAC. So the equation itself is pretty simple. It can get complicated as we bring more of the variables in, but we're just going to go ahead and we're going to start with that equation. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your marketing costs plus your sales expenses, or the expenses that are directly related to the sale for that new client, and you're going to divide it by the number of new customers received in that time frame. So it's very important that you realize that when you're measuring this, you can do it in a week, you can do it quarterly, or you can do it on a yearly basis. But for the purposes of this exercise, we're going to be looking at a week. So from a Monday to a Sunday, right, the 7 days that are there, we're going to look at what were those marketing expenses in those 7 days. We're going to look at what those sales expenses were in those 7 days. And then we're going to look at the number of new customers acquired in that 7-day time period. And that's how we're going to get these equations done. So one thing I want to clarify before we jump into it too, this is where I told you it could get a little bit hairy, but stick with me. We're going on an entrepreneurial journey here. So you have to look at those sales expenses that are directly tied into attaining that new client, which means your time counts. A lot of men and women in the lawn care industry think they don't have an actual customer acquisition cost because they just do it themselves, but that's false. Your time counts, right? So you need to you're paying yourself, so it's going to cost you something to gain a client. So for this case, we're just going to look at, let's say you have a salesperson, right? So let's say you're paying that salesperson $15 an hour, and let's say you have a phone system, right? So that client needs a phone system. So let's say in that week, this is all in a week time period, right? So then you're going to look at the phone system cost for the week. Let's say you got a really fancy phone system, and it's going to be $30 for your phone. Let's say you also realize that your sales staff or you are using software similar to Lawn Buddy. Let's say you're able to calculate that cost down to $7.50 in that week time frame that you're going to spend for software. So then let's say you've got some really whiz-bang internet, right? So you've got the fastest internet for your staff. So let's say you're going to pay $40 a month roughly for that. For your internet. I'm not $40 a month, $40 a week, just to clarify. Then let's say you're going to be looking at your rent. And here's where it can get hairy, right? So if you're able to calculate the space in which your sales staff occupies for them to do their job, you can actually factor this into your customer acquisition cost. If you don't have sales staff and it's just you, then you can just factor in the amount of time that you spend in that area doing sales. But this is where I told you can get a little bit hairy. For the purpose of this exercise, we're going to say that we have a dedicated space for our sales. And let's just say that it's going to be about $375 a week for that. So then, just like I told you, you're going to factor all this together. So remember, as we go through, you're doing $15 an hour. Let's say they're doing 40 hours a week, right? You have $30 for your phone. You have $7.50 for software, $40 for internet, and $375 for your office. But the thing that you don't want to forget is if you have a marketing expense, right? So let's say you're working with a company or you're doing it yourself. For the sake of this exercise, we're just going to say you spent $100. So now what you're going to do is if you go back to this equation, right, you're going to take your marketing plus your sales expenses, right? So if you take all this and you calculate it together, and let's say, like I said, this is a $15 an hour work week, that's going to be about 40 hours in that work week. So you're going to come up with a number, once you add all of this together, that's going to be similar to $552.50. So that is combining your marketing and your sales, right? So now let's say your sales staff are really good. And let's say in that week time period, they're closing two new accounts a day. So if you take the 2 new accounts a day plus 7 days a week, that's 14, right? So now you're going to go in here, you're going to say, all right, here is your costs that are associated here. You're going to divide this. So let's find some space here. divided by 14. So then once you get that calculation, you're really going to come in and you're going to find out that that customer acquisition cost in that week time period is going to be close to $39.46. And that is how you'd be able to calculate your customer acquisition cost in that week time period. Like I said, these variables, they're all made up, right? They're fictitious. But when you look at your data, you're going to be able to calculate what it actually costs you to acquire that customer, and you can pull a lot of it out of your Lawn Buddy account. So if you're already integrated with Lawn Buddy, you can just go in there, look at all your tags, look at your customer expenses, and then also go into your QuickBooks or your bookkeeping software and factor that in, and you can come up with your customer acquisition cost. This is going to help you for when you're pricing for new clients going forward to make sure that you're going to make money on this. Now, in another video, we're going to go into your lifetime value of that client, because it may only cost you $39.46 to acquire them, but if they stay on for the lifetime of your relationship, that return is going to be huge. But there's a retention issue that comes in there as well that we're going to get into in the LTV and customer retention video. Keep in mind, this is not, your customer acquisition cost is not what it takes to interact with the client online. So if you're paying for digital advertising and they say that you're converting a client for $4.50, that is not your customer acquisition cost. That's going to be your cost per lead generated, right? There's a lot of other fancy terms in there for what that is, but this is how you're going to calculate your customer acquisition cost. If you guys have any questions, we are always here for you, and we always love to help you, which is why we are your technology partner and not just software. We want to make sure that you continue to be successful in 2021 and for many years to come. Thank you guys.